Hey everyone, Tactics here, and with Season 2 finally upon us, I've been able to go into the live version of Liberation of Undermine. So we're going to be going over all 7 bosses leading up to Galliwix here on both normal and heroic difficulty to help you and your group get through them cleanly. And then later on in the week, I'll be releasing my standalone Galliwix guide to help you get ahead of the curve as well. Once again, this is not PTR footage. Some things have changed since the PTR. This is from our day 1 clear of the raid, so all the changes that we've seen from PTR to live are going to be included here. Also, something quick to note, I'm not going to be touching on a lot of tank related stuff in this video, as I actually already have a full standalone tank guide to the raid out on my channel, which I'll link also down below if you want to check that out. So I'm going to skip it here. Otherwise, let's not waste time. Let's get straight into the first boss, Vexie and the Geargrinders. First thing you want to note, the stacks on the bosses are important. Basically, you have to remove all 6 of these stacks before the boss reaches 100 energy. Otherwise, you take a ton of raid damage. And so how do you remove these stacks? Well, it's actually going to be using the bikes. So basically, ads are going to spawn through these red walls throughout the room, and it seems that they spawn proximity based. So if you move the boss towards one side of the room, like we're going to see move the boss over this way, doing that causes the bikes to spawn from over here. So you can kind of bait the bike spawns. They always spawn very, very far from where your group is. Now, initially, we're not going to move the boss because on heroic difficulty, there are some additional forms of ground effects in oil, and that spawns from the tank buster, which is going to come in a second here, as well as there's another ability that debuffs 2 players with these purple circles. You're going to see in just a second here. And those on normal just do damage. On heroic, they drop oil, and oil is just like ticking damage. You like slide around like ice, like Senarth ice. So you don't want it near where you're playing. So on heroic, you want to make sure that you drop all these oil puddles away from where you want to play. So we're dropping it in the middle of the room here to kind of create a wall, and then we're going over here, and that's going to force all the bikes to spawn here, which forces the bikes to drive through the oil, which on heroic, because there's oil on heroic, it stuns them. So basically on heroic, we drop this oil here, and then that oil we leave for the remainder of the phase, and the rest of the oil just kind of goes super far, like up the sides here, up the sides here. And now the entire raid, you're going to see we're going to move across this way, and we're going to attempt to bait these bikes. So this was actually a terrible bait. They're all baited on players. If we had grouped up here, they would have all baited into one spot. But you're going to see they're going to get shot through. And they're all going to be stunned in the corner, and the boss gets pulled directly on top of them, and we get to cleave them. And the only thing here on heroic is you need to make sure you pull the boss out before he tank busters again, because that's going to put more goo on the ground. So you can see we're kind of moving a little bit away from where we're standing. The ads are going to spawn. We're going to bait again. These spew oils are just running out, and we pull the boss out to drop the tank buster goo over here. And now the ads are going to be on the wall, and so as soon as the tank buster goes out, more goo spawns. I taunt the boss, drag it on the bikes, cleave, rinse and repeat. That's how we're going to do it on heroic. On normal, there's no goo, so you don't need to move the boss. You can leave the boss like where it is right now, and you can just hang out here the entire time. Just taunt swap on one. But on heroic, you need to bounce back and forth, bounce back and forth. And then these bikers. So you can see they turn into these defunct bikes. Basically, once you kill the bikes, you can then jump into them and you aim them at the boss. You have a button, it's like a channel, and you charge up and you hit the boss, and it takes away one of his stacks. So there's 3 ads per wave, which means you need to do 2 full waves on heroic to clear out all the stacks, and then 1 wave and then 1 extra bike on normal. It also means you have a lot of leeway, because see, we've done 2 waves. Boss only had 50 energy, so you have several extra waves in case you miss a bike. If the bike hits oil, for example, that is, I believe it gets stopped by the oil on heroic. Obviously normal, there's no oil, don't need to worry about that. And so you just aim the bike, boom, into the boss. You can see, boom, they're just shooting in the boss, shooting in the boss. And then it gets weakened. So this is what happens when you remove all the stacks. It's going to be taking 100% bonus damage for 45 seconds baseline. So this is a big damage end phase. You can see we foolishly lusted on pull. I think someone fat fingered it. Don't do that. Lust on this phase. Own the boss in this phase. And then all the ads are going to come in. You can kick the ads. They're going to make this phase shorter. They cast repair, interrupt it, and you can just CC them as well. Just cleaving the boss here. That's pretty much it. One thing to note again on heroic is if you do have any bad puddles, I'm going to rewind here. Puddles can be removed by the fire debuff. These fires, they target random people. In a second here, it'll show here this fire. It's going to shoot after random people, and you can have these people with the arrows run over oil puddles nearby, and it removes them entirely. So if you ever get bad oil puddles, those people with the fire can remove them. But again, that's not a normal problem. Normal, it's much more straightforward. Just kind of stack on one side, bait all the bikes to you, leave them down. So that is Vexie. Let's move on, and let's go to Cauldron of Carnage. So to start out here, there's two bosses that have to be separate over the entire course of the fight. And so you split your raid in half, basically just evenly half, healers, tanks, everything, split them in half. Half is going to monkey side, half is going to T-Rex side. I'm just on the monkey side first, so we're going to talk about the monkey side. So initially, on heroic specifically, you're a little bit more tight on space because there's area denial. On normal, there's no area denial whatsoever, so you can just tank them on where they spawn basically each time, and always do that. On heroic, we're kind of being opposite here to make sure we have the, I think it's like 60-yard separation that you need, because there is some form of area denial on heroic. So first off, on monkey side, you're going to get the static charge bar. It's going to be at the top of my screen here. If as you move, this bar fills up, if this ever gets to full, you stun yourself and everyone within like a radius around you. So you don't want to move excessively in this phase, otherwise you're going to stun yourself. Now, there are these circles from the Thunder Drum that spawn under every single player every half second or something, and so you can move after every 2 circles spawn, and that just limits your movement a little bit here. Don't need to go crazy. You can kind of make your own little triangle. You don't need to do like a stack strat either. Like you're free to kind of just spread out here and not need to worry about that too much. Tank busters going out there, not too much to worry about there. And then that's basically it for normal. That's what the boss does on normal. It's the bar and that. This is the heroic mechanic. So you're going to see it spawns 3 images. These will fixate a random player for 12 seconds. If they reach them, they make area denial on the ground. If they don't, they disappear. So you just want to use CCs. You see you've got roots going out, stuns. Just don't let them reach the player. That, again, could force a little bit of movement. That's the monkey. That's it. So again, this is heroic only. So you're doing that. If you play this correctly, there's no area denial even on heroic. You just, it's okay if, someone touches this or whatever. It's not the end of the world, but ideally you don't. Now, every, just over a minute, like minute 10-ish, they do this clash thing. So they run together, and at this point, they don't buff each other by being close. This just happens. And the one thing you need to worry about is the group damage. So I didn't touch on that. While you're near one of the mobs, you get a stacking dot on your group. So you can see we have 15 stacks to the monkey dot. We have 0 stacks to the T-Rex dot. So during this phase, you're still going to be gaining stacks of your dot, and you see here, but I'm also now getting T-Rex stacks. And so basically what happens is, at this point is when you would swap sides. So whoever was on T-Rex side is going to move over to monkey side. Whoever's on monkey side moves over to T-Rex side. And then for the very beginning of your new phase every time, we're going to start T-Rex phase with a ton of dot stacks. So that's the scariest time for healers, the start of every new phase outside of on pull, because you have all these dot stacks. Same time here, it's 20 seconds of 2-target cleave, but you've got all these waves shooting out and all these circles on the ground. So bullet hell, dodge everything, taking quite a bit of dot damage here. And then, the bosses jump back to their side, and you are switching bosses. So whatever side you were on, you're going to the other side here. And you can see on heroic, there's already these fire puddles here for area denial. So this isn't going to be here on normal. There's no area denial on normal. But what it is, you see we ping, it's this bomb mechanic. So the boss is going to throw a bomb near a random player. So you see we all go to the wall here to bait it. Bomb's going to go out near a random player. And this is a group soak. So everyone on T-Rex side wants to be in this. Now, this is always followed by a frontal cone. This beam is on one random player. This person wants to get it out of the bomb soak, but you want to make sure you do not point this towards gorilla side, because this is a super, super long beam. So you always want to point this into the wall away. And then as soon as that finishes, boom, get out of it. And then we're all in the soak. The soak knocks you. Don't get knocked in that frontal. And then it shoots some waves, and you need to avoid it. That's the main mechanics on this side. Again, on heroic, this also drops a puddle, which is why baiting it in a good spot can be nice. Like this one in the middle of the room, that's not an ideal bait, right? Towards the edges is ideal, just to buy you some more time. Tank debuff, be careful. It shoots more waves out, and these waves hurt a lot, so beware. Don't be near the tank during the tank buster. And then, oh yeah, we got a unlucky soak here near players, and we were too close to the puddle, so you need to give it some breathing room because it's not on players, it's near players. And then on heroic here, what you're going to see is that you're going to have a bunch of, oh yeah, there, go jump in there, get that soak, make sure you soak. There's a minimum soak requirement. These circles are the heroic mechanic. So they spawn on a bunch of players, and they just deal splash damage. So you need to do a loose spread in this phase, just to make sure you aren't cleaving this. Again, normal, that doesn't happen, but that's the heroic mechanic, and then it goes back. So he's going to do 3 bombs, and then you're gonna run back to the middle and do his clash, and you swap back. So that's the whole fight. Not super complicated there. Moving on to Rik Reverb. Okay, so this one is where things start to get a little bit more confusing potentially. So this fight is all about amplifiers. You can see we have 5 markers on the ground here, and that's because the boss spawns 5 amplifiers per phase, and so this is our goal. They're player baited. Well, one of them is on a ranged, and one of them is under the boss. So that's how you can kind of force them. And so right off the top here, we're pulling them to one of these markers. And this is where we want to put our first amplifier, and our ranged is over here on the other marker. Lust on pull, by the way, for this boss and for the last boss we just did. Vexie is the only one that's weird so far, where you're lusting on the damage amp. One thing, tank debuff is a frontal. Be aware of that. Something to be aware of. Don't be on your tanks. Here's the amplifier. So they're going to spawn the amplifiers. Boom. And he's going to also spawn the second amplifier. Oh, no, my mistake. He only spawns 1 amplifier in the first cast, and then his next 2 casts spawn 2. That's how he gets to 5. Odd numbers. Okay, so at this point, we move him away because tanks have to move them 15 yards away, otherwise it gets hypercharged. Now, what is the point of these amplifiers? Basically, they have an energy bar, and if they get to full energy, they deal a ton of raid damage. So you want to make sure they never get to full energy, and by doing that, you click on them and you drain the energy. You take some damage in the process. And on heroic, you have like a 45-second debuff when you do this. So basically how it works is that you need 2 players to like drain it every 30 seconds, essentially. So 2 players assigned to each amplifier. On normal, you can assign 1 player to each amplifier because that debuff is only like 15 seconds. So you can have 1 person solo each amplifier, but heroic, you do need to have the second. In general, we have ranged do this, but, obviously if you don't have enough range to do all the amplifiers, you're going to have to start throwing in, other people to do it as well. This is the other heroic mechanic here outside of needing 2 people per amplifiers. There are occasionally ad spawns in these red circles, and these ads have a cast. And if the cast ever goes off, this grand finale cast, it puts like a 15-second dot on the entire group. It's not a guaranteed wipe. In fact, I think we healed through having 1 stack of this today on the first thing we did it, but you don't want it. So immediately damage priority goes into the ads, and you see they are a bit of a random spawn. So we pull the boss to the close ones just to get some cleave for melee, and then ranged are immediately hitting the far ones. Don't worry about hitting the boss here. Ads are the priority. We're going to kill these ones, and then melee is going to turn around immediately and start hitting this one over here just to make it easier. Make sure it dies in time. Range is over hitting these ones back there. That's dying. And we have moved away a little bit from the thing here, so we call it, hey, we're going to spin the boss a little bit here, watch the frontal, get him back to this one to dropping the next amplifier. I'm going to see the 2 amplifier drops here. There it is. And then you're going to see the second one there on the range, so that's why they're over there. Now, other mechanics, because we covered the heroic stuff now. This, just you spread for this debuff, just a debuff goes out on multiple people, part of the raid damage that goes out on this fight. The other thing is the sound cannon, which is going to be, if I fast forward it here, it's going to happen. I hear it. It's this front random target line attack. Just, don't be in the line, essentially. Just don't be in the line, and you're good. And otherwise, there's just a bunch of stuff to dodge. So you see the circles coming out there. You also have to be spread with this, of course. These echoes cast is going to cause the amplifiers to shoot out like little sonic ball thingies. Here they are from all the amplifiers. So the more amplifiers that are out, the more stuff you have to dodge when that happens. And then once the boss reaches full energy, so he's going to spawn 5 amplifiers, he's going to do another phase. You're going to see he's going to hit full energy here. And he's going to get Sound Cloud, so he's going to go immune. Can't do damage to him. And now he's going to start activating the amplifiers one at a time. So boom, you see that? You need to get in this. Everyone needs to get in this. And if you're in this, it's going to knock you over the rig. Very similar to like Queen Anserek. For example, the pops, but no one needs to touch this. It should just automatically do it for you. Boom, you get knocked over it. You're safe. You're also taking quite a bit of damage in this phase. As you can see, it's like pretty heavy. I'm looking at my talents. Why not? Yeah, it's pretty heavy damage in this phase. So, healers, be ready for that as well. But it does this 4 times. And then you just go back, repeat phase 1 again. And you can see here, there were 5 amplifiers, right? So he does this 4 times. There's 5 amplifiers. We get an extra amplifier every single phase this happens. So be aware of that. You will need extra people to do this these amplifiers here, because there's now going to be an extra set of amplifiers. So just be ready for that. And you see we moved the marker over there to kind of adjust, like, hey, that's the first amplifier. We're starting now at circle. We're going to go back the other way towards the wall. And that's Rik Reverb. So it's just kind of, this dance back and forth, making sure you're killing ads on heroic, and then just making sure you're on top of those amplifiers, never letting them get to full energy. And that brings us to Stix Bunkjunker here, where it's kind of a split between one boss phase, but there's like two different sets of things happening, whether you're doing the junk ball stuff or you're doing the rest of the raid stuff. So let's go through here. We'll talk about both roles. I believe initially I'm not assigned to the junk balls in terms of how that works. It's always going to be the active tank along with 3 other random players that get picked to do the junk balls. Everyone else is going to be in the other job. So I am the inactive tank initially. And so I'm going to be doing the other job. So let's talk about that to start. So first off, this is the mechanics going to happen throughout the fight. These fire circles just go out. It's not on the entire raid. It's on a large portion of the raid. Just want to loosely spread for this. You are going to want to beware later on in the fight, but we'll talk about that in a second here. Just deal some ticking damage. So junk is going to spawn here in a second when the sorting happens, where the balls get picked. This is also the taunt swap. All these little circles spawn junk, and you want to try and do your best as a group to stay away from them, because the balls need to run through this junk to grow. Now, in terms of what we're going to be doing here, there's a bunch of ads that spawn when this happen. On normal, there's going to be junkyard hyenas and scrap masters, and on heroic, you have those along with territorial bombshells. These are heroic only ads. How these ads work, they will stay in a stationary spot near where you are until they're 75% health, and then they will jump off the junk pile that they're on, and then you can pick them up as a tank and knock them and all that kind of stuff and kill them. You have 30 seconds to kill them, otherwise they blow up for group damage. So you want to make sure you cleave these guys relatively quickly. Otherwise, hyenas, they just will attack things. Tanks can pick them up. They have a disease on heroic, but you could just use disease spell, not super scary. Scrap masters have a kick, and then they have these green circles where they leap on it, so just avoid that. In general here, your whole goal is to kind of clean up these ads, group them all together, cleave them down if they happen. Your main goal on heroic is to get those crabs, and then kind of keep them away from the junk ball. So ideally, if the area around you gets clear relatively quickly, you want to go to that clear area. So for us, we probably should be moving a little bit towards triangle at this point. And now this is where the scary part happens. When you have these fire debuffs, you want to be very careful not to touch any of the junk piles. See, I'm very close, because if you cleave the junk piles with these circles, they light on fire, and I believe we'll have something bad happen. Yeah, up on the top, you can see on my screen, they'll light on fire here, and this gives you a stacking raid dot for a decent amount of time. It's not permanent, but it'll go away eventually, but it's a very long time, and this does stack. So if you hit like 4 piles here, you're gonna have 4 stacks of this raid damage. And so, if you don't have a lot of stacks, it's not a big deal. 1 going out on a phase is totally fine. Actually, this is like arguably good. But if you have like 10 of these, that's when you're like really scared. So do your best to try and get into the open space. You can see now this area is like totally clear, so we should be aggressively moving to this clear area, just to make it so that it would be easier. You have more room to spread without touching junk piles, and that's pretty much it. You're going to cleave these ads down when they spawn in here. Those were picked up by the junk balls, which we'll talk about in a second. And then for the next phase, you just want to try and move again to a clear area. So for example, if we were over here at this point, there's junk piles here, we should be moving down this way to triangle just to start in a clear area in case the balls didn't get all the junk, which they likely won't. Now, let's talk about the junk ball job here, because I'm about to get it. Basically, now as a junk ball, your job is to soak up as much junk as possible to make it so that you have room in the arena to actually spread out with those fire circles, right? So you have this bar. This is a weak bar, but this is the default bar. Up to 50%, you can only grow by soaking small piles or by soaking hyenas. Those are the 2 things you can grow. Above 50%, that's when you can start soaking the big junk piles, and you can soak scrap masters. That's how you get to full. And then at full, you're either assigned to hit the boss to do a ton of damage. Look at the damage meter right now. That's just a guy that hit the boss with a ball. Lots of damage. Or destroy one of the bombs. So initially there's 1 bomb. After the intermission, there's 2 bombs. If these bombs detonate, you die. So you have like 25 seconds basically here, 24 seconds to grow and then hit the boss, or to hit the bomb. And you always want to make sure you do hit something with your bomb, because again, you're losing a lot of damage if you aren't. Now, few things. Obviously, if you hit the bomb when you're full energy, your ball also blows up. It blows up the bomb. If you hit the boss at any point, no matter what your energy, your ball is broken. So make sure you are moving away. So that's why I kind of laterally moved and pointed myself away from the boss when I got picked, so that I didn't immediately hit the boss. The other thing, if you hit any of the heroic ads, the territorial crab shells, you also instantly break. So it's really important to stay away from them. And that's why the ground people really want to make sure they're grouping them up and then going to clear space so that they're away from the junk that you're potentially clearing. So you're going to see here, I'm going to go through, assigning spaces. Let's talk about that. Actually, let's rewind a second here, because it's easier to see. So basically, how do you decide where people are soaking junk? So like I said, there's going to be the tank, and then there's going to be 4 other players. So I think I must have said 3 other. There's 5 total junk balls, at least with this amount of players. And so we have markers on the ground assigned to the head markers that either Bigwigs or DBM gives to the players that get this debuff. So you can see on the raid frames here, there's a triangle going out, there's a diamond, circle, star. And so the general goal is to like try and clear the junk in your area. Obviously, it's a little bit dependent, where are we in the room, how much little junk is there if you really need that, where did other people go. It's all a little bit variable, but that's like a good general rule. But don't like live and die by that rule, because you're gonna see here, for example, just to play it through now, I'm gonna go. I get cut off by this guy. I think I tried to move a little bit, but then I end up going here. I'm in the orange area, but orange isn't to be found anywhere. This is technically my area, but it's fine. Now I'm in it. And then I'm filling up this area in the corner. And then at this point, I should have gone to the boss. I think I try and green and get more, but it's not the end of the world if you leave some junk up. Like, it's the junk on its own is not doing a lot of damage, especially around the edges of the room. It's really the ones in the middle where we are that are kind of spooky. And at this point, again, the bomb, you saw someone go over and get that. You can assign people as soon as it pops up, say, hey, that person gets the bomb. You can have it be, hey, it's in your head marker quadrant, you get the bomb. Whatever you want to do, as long as the bomb dies, because that's like the main wipe condition of this fight. So once the bomb is dead, all spare balls should go into the boss. You do stun and you do deal physical damage to players if you run them over. However, it's relatively small. And like I said, this is the most damage in this fight if you just hit the boss here. So what I should have done is rolled right over these people and hit the boss. 100% that's the correct play. Doesn't deal that much damage. Instead, I kind of like a swerve off here to dodge them, try and get this, and I actually have my ball expire. So that's a bad thing. So if there's people in your way and you're trying to go to the boss or even the bomb, just run them over. They're not going to die unless they're already almost dead. And if you're carrying any ads, when your ball blows up, the ads drop too. And you can see they have this debuff, damage amp. So just really good for the balls to pick up the ads. It also makes grouping them easier if you hit the boss after you pick up the ads, because they're all just under the boss. And that's like the both phases explained. He's about to do his little intermission phase. He's going to like fly up in the air here, bunch of circles for a little bit, does a big slam on the ground. At this point, he gets this empowered buff, extra attack speed for tanks, and then he spawns one extra bomb. So now you have 2 bombs to worry about with your ball soakers. And now he also spawns an additional territorial crab shell for heroic. So an extra ad that you need to take below 75%, group up, and kill before 30 seconds is up. And from there, he doesn't do that intermission again. He just continues doing that for the remainder of the fight. So relatively straightforward here after that, but 2 very distinct jobs, whether you have the ball or you do not. Then we can talk about Sprocketmonger Lockenstock. These names, by the way, actually 10 out of 10. So right off the top here, he's going to kind of split the room with wire transfer. And how you can think of it, I guess this is a good angle, is this is the back where the boss is, right? You have this is one section, this is the second section, this just off screen third, and this one over here is fourth. 4 total sections. If you split the raid into 4 rooms, he's always going to hit 2 of them with wire transfer. This is basically just electricity on the ground you need to stay away from, and this is always static on the phase. So in phase 1, this always happens in the same pattern. Phase 2, same pattern. Phase 3, same patterns. And so this is why we're all up here on the front of the room, because we know or by the boss, sorry, because we know the entrance gets covered with this lightning. Now, to make this easier, general rule of thumb is tanking in like these edge rectangles in each section makes it very easy to adjust. Like if we're here, obviously the boss is over there on pull. So if we're tanking here, very easy to adjust and move to this area if the back half starts filling with electricity, for example. So that's a good rule of thumb. And that's going to adjust multiple times over the course of each phase. Now let's talk about the heroic mechanic because it's about to happen. These spawn mines, and these mines work similar to the static. They spawn 3 times per phase. They spawn in sets of 4, and it's static per phase where they spawn. So this is not going to chase from phase to phase, but phase 1 spawns are different than phase 2 spawns, if that makes sense. And so what you need to do here, you soak these mines. They do a hit of raid damage. They debuff the player who soaks, so they can't soak again for 2 minutes. And they put a 2-second debuff on the entire raid, where if you soak another mine in that 2 seconds, you basically die. So basically you need to stagger these soaks, and you do need to soak them because they get hit by abilities. And if they get hit by abilities, they're going to pop at the same time, and that's obviously bad. So what we do is we assign 3 soakers per set because we can let the 4th one get hit by an ability. And because 3 sets of these happen per phase, that means 9 soakers. And by the time phase 2 comes back around, the first set debuff is gone, so they can soak again. So 9 soakers here to get all these mines. And you can just stand in these circles. We have Tank soak this first set, him and me getting another one. Again, I wait the 2 seconds. There's a debuff. Get a 2-minute debuff as well. Then we'll soak that last one. This is obviously a big portion of the raid damage. This is the other big portion of the raid damage on top of one more debuff that goes on the raid. This is a fall off damage from the tank. So generally you can see we go away from the raid to blow up over there. That's a burst of damage. In terms of other stuff, there's a lot of stuff to dodge. So inventions are about to start. Beams are going to come out. You need to make sure you avoid these beams. That's one thing. The other thing that's going to occasionally come out are the drills. Going to be here shortly. Here's the first wire transfer of the fight. Again, it's always going to cover now the back half, so we shift to the front half. We could have cheated a little bit better, honestly, but not the end of the world. You see, you have plenty of time to move here. So Screw Up's going to go out. You see these yellow arrows at the top of the screen there. Oops, my mistake. Yellow arrows, bottom of the screen here too. After the cast goes off, after a few seconds, they're going to start spawning these drills, and these drills apply a bleed to player's hit that also stuns. So it's bleed damage and a stun, and it's awful. So you need to get this away from people. So you see immediately people get it. The 2 people get it. They run away to the edges of the room, away from melee, away from other range. Just get it the heck out. You're going to spawn, I think, like 3 of them. And it's awful. So get that out of your group. Do not stand in this. If you see them in melee, get away from them. Do not be near them. 3 players looks like got it, actually. Here's a tank debuff going out again. And then we're going to get more stuff to dodge here. His next invention is the rockets. Sonic Baboom is the other form of raid damage, by the way. Goes on the raid. Here are the rockets. These deal a ton of damage. If you get hit by them, try and avoid them. They do a bit of splash damage to people if you get hit as well. So if you're in a melee stack and you soak them, very, very bad. And then from here, it's just a repeat. So again, you're doing 3 sets of mines per phase. I believe you're doing 3. There's 3 of the electricity spawns per phase. So the next one's going to be directly on us. A bunch of the drill spawns per phase. And then, this is the last invention here. Sorry, one more invention. Magnets. They're going to just pull players towards them. And if you get pulled in, you do get stunned. I believe I get pulled in here. And they do happen shortly after the wire transfer. You have enough time to wait. You see, I was a bit antsy here. I moved because I saw the wire transfer. You can wait the magnets out, and then you can move immediately after to the other side. Now the only other thing is the intermission. So intermission here triggers at 100 energy. And the big thing, he casts this. When this finishes, you get knocked based on your position to the boss. So I am standing here. I'm going to get knocked backwards. If you're over here on the edge, you get knocked off the edge and die. If you're here behind the boss, you get knocked into these screw ups and you get stunned and take bleed damage. It's bad. So make sure you get knocked into the middle of the room ideally. And specifically too, the boss will go to static places here. And so we actually always know the boss is going to go to the back, back left of me. So I'm going to get knocked towards that direction. Boom. Big knock, and the boss is here, and this is the intermission phase, and this is actually the big scary healing phase. So one, electricity fills the not conveyor belt parts of the room, and the conveyor belts are pushing you away from the boss at the same time. So that's something to be aware of there. You can run through this electricity. It's not the end of the world. Maybe pop a personal or something, but it's not. You can do it for a little bit, basically. At the same time, there's like a damage going out. I believe there's healing absorbs as well. There's circles you need to dodge. So melee, they come to the edge where the boss is to get uptime. Range can kind of be in the middle here, as you can see, and they can hit the boss from here. And this is where we stack CDs. Like AMZ's Spirit Link went down, healing cooldowns. This is the phase where you stack those things. And then after this phase, he empowers one of his inventions. So the first invention is always the turrets that he empowers. I'll fast forward to see the first turrets. Here they are. Giant. right? This is like triple the size of the turrets you saw before. So be aware, right? This is much bigger, much more powerful. It's going to own you if you're inside it for any of the duration. So make sure you watch that. After the second phase, he empowers the missiles that we saw. Fast forward a little bit more, sorry. There's the second phase. Missiles should be here. They are. So they're these orbs, and actually, yeah, let me rewind a little bit because you can see the splash damage. These orbs basically now instead of missiles, and again they deal pretty big splash damage if you get touched. So some are gonna hit melee here, boom, and like people lose quite a bit of their health. So you need to watch these. They move a little faster. They're a little harder to see. Just keep an eye on them. And make sure you avoid them. And then I believe it enrages after this. So nothing else is going to get empowered. It's just a rinse and repeat. He enrages around 7 minutes, if I remember right. And that's kind of your hold. So you have 3 phases of dealing with all the various boss mechanics. And then one phase where one thing is empowered. And then the final phase where 2 things are actually empowered. And that's the whole thing. So again, tank kind of in this little square here, see the combos, move accordingly, get the screw ups out, and then on heroic you have to do the bomb soak rotation as well. And that is Sprocketmonger Lockenstock. Again, these 2 bosses were definitely a bit of a step up over the previous 3, and now we're stepping up once again to One-Armed Bandit. This fight is only going to be on normal because that's all we killed on day 1 of the patch here. We did not kill heroic of this boss. We didn't even pull heroic of this boss, but I will do my best to point out specifically where the mechanical differences are on heroic versus normal. And the main thing is like the damage ramps up to 11, the DPS check ramps up to 11 on heroic for these 2 specific boss fights. So that's like the main thing. But in terms of the actual mechanic stuff, there's actually not a ton of differences. So on pull here, these ads are like really fake. They don't really do anything. They just hit the tank, I think. So don't worry about them. They're not relevant. They just die instantly. The main mechanic of this fight is spin to win. That is the main mechanic of this fight. We'll fast forward to that. Puddle is a tank debuff. When this ability happens, he spawns 3 ads. And these ads, when they come out here, they're going to have an icon above their head. This icon indicates the token they'll drop. So there we go. Coins, fire, and I believe lightning in the bottom corner is what we have. And when you kill them, they drop that token. And you need to put 2 tokens into the boss before this finishes. So 35 seconds, I believe it was, before that ends. Otherwise, you die if you don't do it. And that will give the boss an empowerment for a short amount of time. He does something based on the tokens you put into him. And then you go on your way about the fight. If you ever repeat token combinations, you instantly die as well. How do you know which combinations to use? Handy dandy at the front of the room. These show all combinations you're allowed to use. All the ones that you're allowed to use. Whenever you do one, and for example here, we're going to do fire and coins. This will stop lighting up and then the other 5 will be lit. So that you can always look to the front to see what ones you're allowed to do. Now, what do these symbols actually do? Fire is raid damage. Electricity spawns a tank pillar thing. Bombs spawns ads. And then coins is a wild card effect. It does something different. It amplifies the other one in some way. In terms of difficulty, ease in general, I will say the easiest ones are the lightning ones, the tank mechanic related ones on normal and heroic, because basically how it works is it's used to clear these puddles, but on normal and heroic, you can just have your tank kind of put these always on the edge or on top of existing puddles. So you never actually need to interact with the coils that are spawned by the lightning mechanic ever outside of the initial spawn. And because of that, they're the easiest to deal with by far. Second easiest, I would say, is probably fire. This is the one we're going to do first. Again, fire plus coin is just the biggest raid damage moment of the fight. We do it on pull because we are going to have all of our healing CDs available. And so we just stack our healing CDs on fire coin. The hardest ones are the combinations with the bombs, the ads, and specifically bomb coin, I think, is probably the hardest one. So if you can avoid bomb coin and if you can avoid bomb fire, that's what you really, really want to avoid the most. Otherwise, again, I recommend doing fire coin first, and then from there, just all the lightning combo. So I think it's lightning coin second, lightning flame third, and lightning bomb third, and lightning flame fourth. Assuming you haven't auto pushed the boss at that point already, and hopefully you never have to do combo 5 or 6, which are the hard ones: coin bomb and flame bomb. Now, when this happens, these ads, like I said, they do the random target thing. They also have a kick that you're going to see in a second here. And they'll also have a debuff, which the debuffed player just needs to get out of the group and get dispelled. And that's the three mechanics these ads have while they're up. When they die, like I said, they drop a thing on the ground. One person gets it. They're above their head. They can run to the boss, use their extra action button, put the coin in the boss. You have to beat this cast timer. On normal, this guy's stationary here. On heroic, I believe he follows the tank around, so tanks can drag him to the mobs to get cleave. And boom, we've triggered the thing immediately. So again, this is the big Giga raid damage. It's fire combined with coin, the wild card. So you get this hits, stacking dot, stack your healing CDs here. That's why we do it first, because every single healing CD is up. And now you have 48 seconds basically, and then you're going to do another combo. Same deal as like Sprocketmonger, where like the ads come out, the 3 symbols that you get, they're always going to come out in that order. So that first spawn is always going to have a fire guy, it's always going to have a coin guy, and it's always going to have an electric guy. But then the second spawn is going to have a different trio, etc., etc. But it's always going to be, the first one's always the same, second one's always the same, etc. Other mechanics. Let's talk about the other mechanics here. Coins. They're going to come out here in just a second. Well, healing absorb. This is the main raid damage here. That's throughout the fight instead of just in bursts. And this is just stacking healing absorb on the group. And this is a dot based on the healing absorb. So if you remove the healing absorb, dot goes away. Coins, this is going to target a random player. It's going to be a line attack. This blue line, random player, going to shoot out on heroic. I believe there's 2, normal there's 1, and this coin deals a ton of damage if it hits you, stuns you, don't get hit by it. It's going to do like an explosion when it reaches the end of its path. The thing is though, if you stand on the edge of that coin, you actually get a damage buff. So there is some little min-maxing. If you avoid it, but barely avoid it, you get a bit of a damage and healing buff. I wouldn't worry about min-maxing this on normal. On heroic, week 1, it looks like you do kind of need to min-max it, but heroic, a week from now, you're also probably not going to need it. So if you're not going to be facing this boss for a little bit, the DPS check probably doesn't exist for you at that point, so don't worry. This is the circle when it hits the wall. The other thing, while these coins are out in the room, this arrow on the boss is a 5% damage increase. That's from the coin. So what you can do is you can have a player interact with that coin to shoot it, and that will actually destroy the coin. And see, someone has already shot it, and that will get rid of the 5% damage debuff. Players can go again, walk up next to this coin when you shoot it to get that damage buff. But again, normal and heroic, if you're facing this boss later than week 1, not going to be relevant in terms of a damage check. So I recommend having the assigned player or 2 players on heroic, because there's 2 coins. Just shoot the coins into a wall at the back of the room, so you never need to worry about it accidentally hitting people. People don't need to worry about dodging. People don't need to worry about the circle. Only the 2 people doing the coin to the back of the room or 1 on normal will need to, and we assign our hunter to do it on this one here. So makes it much easier. Again, we did send it through here just to see what it's like, but I don't recommend it for most guilds. The damage is totally irrelevant, as you're going to see. And then from there, again, it's just doing the combos as they come up. The boss auto phases to the next one in 30%. So you have to do as many combinations until you get to 30% health. And the ideal here is you don't go over 4, right? Going through 6 combinations is quite difficult. You may need to do this on heroic early on, but we actually only do 2 combinations here that you're going to see. So again, it's not a lot of health, at least on normal. Next combination is coming out. We're doing the hard one here. So we're doing bomb coin just to see what it was like. But again, I recommend you do a shock coin on this one. And since you're not going to see it here, basically what would happen is the active tank gets a coil that spawns on them. So the active tank wants to be near the edge of the room. And then that would do one thing immediately, some sort of, I believe a coin, it pulls players in and does some damage. And then if you just walk away from it, it's never going to do stuff again. You have to interact with it to do stuff. And when you interact with it, it removes the 2 closest puddles. But again, because space management is not a problem on normal and heroic, you never need to worry about clicking it. You can just leave it there and ignore it. That's why lightning is super easy. This is going to be bomb and coin. So what this is going to do is bomb spawns ads, and coin makes the ads CC immune. So this is, again, very dangerous. You ideally never want to do this one. And the ads always shoot out directly in front of the boss. So again, on heroic, you can control where the boss is, point the boss away from your raid. On normal, he just shoots it right at the front of the room, fixate random people, run at them. They cannot be CC'd in any way. You have to cleave them before, they get to their target and blow up. So that's the bombs. And again, they're really annoying, specifically with coins because they can't be CC'd. If it's with fire, if it's with shock, they can be CC'd, so they're much easier to handle then. Now 30% is phase 2. He gets stunned for a little bit. And then we're going to get into the various mechanics in phase 2. So he's still going to spawn those coins that he did in phase 1. Still putting out the healing absorb that he did in P1. He's going to now link a machine. He's going to spawn these throughout this phase. Circle on the ground, knockback from the circle like Sprocketmonger. And then immediately after, he forms a beam between him and this spot. You do not want to be in this beam. You can take kind of close to it to make this beam as small as possible, as we're doing here. But yeah, you really do not want to get the beam. You see, actually, there's the coin buff. That's what it looks like if you stand next to the line. So that's the first thing. Don't be near that beam. Second debuff is Hot Heat. This is going to pick 2 players, and it's going to shoot fire beams from the boss. There's the next coil, so he's going to spawn a few of these over the course of this phase. So, watch where they are. Don't get knocked through another beam too that exists. Hot Heat is going to come out in a second here. 2 players are going to get marked. There it goes. Boom. 2 players. Fire beams shoot out from the boss to those 2 players. So these players can basically just like either move out of the raid or just kind of stand still. Everyone else just moves away. And then fire beams are going to shoot out in a second here. Boom. I don't recommend stacking, and then you just don't stand in it. Other than that, there's only one more mechanic. We're going to kill the boss here, but it's just he's going to use coins to do constant raid damage until the boss dies, or he casts his final ability, which is a big detonation, explosive jackpot. And if he finishes that cast, it's a raid wipe, kind of like Rygalon. So it's a race to kill the boss here before the boss kills you. If you're having trouble meeting the DPS check in the burn phase specifically, you can lust it. We weren't worried about it on normal, so we were lusting on pull here. But if this DPS check is tight, like on heroic week 1, we're probably going to lust in this burn phase, since the burn phase is a limited percentage, right? It starts at 30% to 0, whereas the first phase, we could have sat in that first phase for several combinations of stuff longer. Now let's move to the final boss we're covering in this video, and that is Mugsy. Again, full Galliwix guide. Once we kill Heroic Galliwix, it's going to be up on my channel in a couple of days, most likely, so make sure you do check that out. And if this video has been useful to you, make sure you leave a like and subscribe for more content like it. It really does help me out. Now, this boss, you can see 2 heads on the boss, 2 distinct sides of the room. These rooms are associated with one of the bosses. This like mech side is what I'll call it, is associated with Z. And the earth side is associated with Mug. The one that is empowered is based on where the players are. The most players pick the empowerment. The boss location does not matter. It's based on the players. So we're all here. It's going to be the Z side or the mech side. So starting with this side, immediately, whenever you switch sides, there's like 6 seconds of raid damage. So on pull, that counts. 6 seconds of raid damage because we're picked a side. This also spawns an ad on the mech side. There's 2 ads. We're moving the boss to the close one. Range are going to be hitting one off screen. You can see the health over here. Just kill them ASAP. They do random target damage. They take double damage when they get below 80% health. They just get insta-cleaved down. And then we get to the main distinct difference on normal and heroic is these mines. So on normal, these mines, they just fixate people and they deal damage if they soak you, if you touch them rather, and you can't kill them. So we pop an immunity. You see me bubbling around, soak them all. On heroic, you can't do it like this because when you soak a mine, it creates 3 additional soaks that your group needs to get. Otherwise, it's a wipe. So you can't just immune soak them all. You can soak a couple, get those soaks, the 6 soaks that spawn or however many, wait, soak one, get the soaks, etc. So you have to do this in a slower fashion, but we can just instantly get rid of them here. But you're going to see because of this, like there's like a lot of moments of nothing happening because they don't intend for you to, at least, on heroic, to soak them all instantly. On normal, get definitely big defensive or on immunity, soak them all. Definitely worth it. Next up, there is a group soak in this Goblin Guided Rocket. Random target player here. It's going to leave a fire puddle as well. On heroic, you need to split your raid in half. Half of them soak it because it leaves a 3-minute debuff on you where you can't soak it again. And then the next half of the raid would soak it the next time you're back in the mech wing, because you do have to swap back and forth between them as the boss's energy goes up. If the boss ever reaches 100 energy, you die. And so you'll be back here before 3 minutes is up, essentially. So half the raid in the first soak, half the raid in the second on heroic. On heroic, this ad, I believe you also fight it. On normal, this ad just seemed to insta-die, so you don't ever need to fight it. On heroic, I assume you do need to fight it, and it just deals random target damage. So just kill it. If you're targeted by it multiple times late in the cast, it deals ramping damage. You can pop a defensive potentially. Tank Soak here. This is going to target a random player. This line, just stand still. Tank's going to get into it. It deals damage to the player based on how much damage the tank takes. So person defensive. It puts a bleed on the tank. And then it puts a circle around the initial target. So they just get out with that circle. And then the bleed tank, I just dwarfed it off instantly. But, you know, bleed cleanse, dwarf, immunity to remove it, whatever. Or just eat it for 45 seconds. It's not even that much damage. And then there's one more mechanic in this phase, is a random target frontal ability, spray and pray. Point this away from the group, pop a defensive if you're it. And now we're going to swap to the earth side here. So you see he swapped early, right? It's based on the players. It's based on the players, not the boss positioning. So move over, there's our 6 seconds of ray damage. And so on this side, the main mechanic is going to be the earth prisons that spawn. So it's going to target 2 random players. You see we threw marks down just to show how we want to put them side by side. You do not want to overlap them, as these will spawn an ad, and if they're overlapped, they enrage. So we're going to put the circles together with a little gap in the middle. And to make sure we kill that ad in there in time, we are putting some players, assigned players, into each. You don't need a ton here, but it's going to be LOS because walls are going to come up. And so you need, you know, at least like a healer, a few DPS. Both tanks are outside. Don't put the tanks in there. We're going to squeeze the boss in the middle. This is a little cheesy thing. You don't need to do this either. This is like a little sneak peek at a mythic strat potentially, because from here, people inside can cleave the boss and the goon, and people outside can cleave the boss and potentially spread dots to the goons. Like I'm going to divine toll here and I can hit the stuff. So little neat tip to get some bonus damage. Not needed at all. So don't worry about being this precise. Take mechanics of frontal here, so we're all on the inside. The tank gets pointed to the edge of the room, and to free them, you have to kill these guys. They'll break the walls, and you'll be free. And there's also an interrupt in there as well, so you want to make sure you keep an interrupt on that. The other main mechanic here it is, the ice boots. On normal, this just picks random people. You take some damage, you get slowed. Not really too big a deal. On heroic, at the same time, there's going to be an arrow pointed at every single one of these players. And if that hits people, it's going to deal a ton of damage. The thing is, it's stopped on the first thing hit. So you can aim it at these walls actually and break the walls. And then that player doesn't take the additional damage. So that's what you'll want to do on heroic. Either hit the walls. Technically, they can hit the crawler mines from earlier. If you have any crawler mines, you can soak this with immunities, since you not necessarily will be able to soak all the bombs with immunities on heroic, that kind of thing. But most part, you'll want to hit the walls with that and have it deal no damage and require no defensive. And you see they just move and then they would fire off, and then you could aim it at the walls. And now we would be moving again back, because again, boss getting your 80 energy, we'd be moving back to the initial side, and you'd bounce back and forth until 40%. Sorry, there's another frontal here, just like the first phase frontal, single target, follows the player, pop a defensive. But 40% is the intermission on all fights. So static charge, basically what's going to happen here is you're going to do 3 charges, and every charge is followed by the boss putting out his arms and dealing damage on a line and spinning. So is near players, so don't be too far every time. He runs away, he spins, he does some damage. Get close, you're dodging all these circles, you're spinning around, dodging all these circles. Then he's going to do it again after this is done, so don't go too far from the boss. Melee, like their uptime and all that, is also very, very important in burn phases. I'm guessing this is going to be your general lust on this fight. We just lust on pull because, again, we weren't super worried about the damage check. But if the damage check is tight for you, or if you're on heroic even, you want to lust probably this phase, because the last phase is just extreme chaos. But again, he's doing this 3 times. Do a bullet storm. He's going to charge again. Don't be in the path of the charge. Deals damage. Dodges the bullet storm. And now we're into phase 2 here, where he's going to bloodlust himself, gain extra haste, and he is going to empower both of Mug and Z at the same time. So you, no matter where you are in the room, you're dealing with every single mechanic. So you want to make this phase as short as humanly possible here, and that is why I would recommend bloodlusting in the intermission, because it happens at 40%, and so all your damage 40% and lower counts to shorten this phase. So having cooldowns and bloodlust at the 40% phase, where you can just kind of freely DPS the boss, is going to be super, super valuable. Other thing to keep in mind too, it's the stacking buff on the boss. This is a stacking damage increase. Every time you swap sides, he loses like 10 stacks, but he's going to gain these up over the course of the fight. So he's going to be hitting harder and harder by the time you get to this late in the fight. And like I said, it's not going to create all these new overlaps. Like we're in the lightning side, we do get an ad. He's going to spawn some mines, which again, normal. We're going to insta-soak with immunities, but on heroic, you have to slowly soak these. But now he's going to do like the frost circles on this side because, you know, where everything is available. Everything is up for grabs here. He's going to then do the prisons again, which we're going to make sure we again put side by side with a gap between them. Have, you know, the assigned groups go into each one, and again, like I said, just chaos. It's just absolute chaos in this phase. There's a lot going on, so you want it to be as short as humanly possible. But that is it. That is the Mugsy fight, and that is the entire liberation of Undermine up until Gallywix. Hopefully this video helped you out. If it did, make sure to leave a like and subscribe for more content like it. Gallywix guide coming in a few days. Mythic boss guides coming after that, as well as a bunch of key guides as well. If you're looking to get 3K rating, push for title, I'm going to have guides out for that as well. So make sure you are subscribed if you're looking for that. Otherwise, thank you to all my amazing Patreons for their continued support. Could not make all this content without you guys, so appreciate you. And I'll see everyone in the next video.